What is up guys, my name is Pocketcraft and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to get Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina all in Cobblemon. If you find this video helpful at all, please hit that subscribe button. We're really pushing to 100k subscribers and we'd love to have you as part of the team. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you have the Aldemon's data pack installed. Now you'll need to make sure this file is in your data pack and resource pack folder, and you'll need to make sure that you have it selected in your resource pack folder in game. Otherwise, your Pokemon will just spawn as substitute dolls and you won't get the actual models. Now, first I'm going to show you where each of these Pokemon spawn. Then I'm going to get into some tips on how to catch them and how to change each of them to their origin forms. So make sure to stick around to the end of the video so you don't miss out on that. Dialga is an ultra rare spawn in Jagged Peaks biomes, and that's actually the only place that it spawns. So you're going to need to make sure you find one of these places before you hunt for one. And luckily enough, the same is actually true for Palkia. So if you can make your way to a Jagged Peaks biome, you have a chance of Palkia and Dialga spawning in. Now, one of my biggest recommendations is that you use the PokeNav mod. This mod allows you to see what Pokemon spawn in each area and what percentage chance they have of spawning. So here you can see that in this Peaks biome, and Jagged Peaks can also include some other Peaks biomes such as Stony Peaks, which is one of the reasons you want to make sure you use the PokeNav mod. You can see their chances of spawning. It's 1.79% in the ultra rare bucket for Dialga and Palkia. So they're both pretty rare, but there's a lot of other legendaries that spawn here at the same time, so it's a pretty good place to hunt. But I always recommend using this because sometimes there's some weird rules with light levels, and so you'll want to make sure you have this with you to make sure you're actually in a spot where the Pokemon you're hunting can spawn. And then since these Pokemon are so rare, it can get really boring hunting for them. And I feel like the reason most people don't find them is they just get tired of looking. So I always recommend that you come with something else productive you can do while you're hunting for these Pokemon. So obviously you can mine for resources, you can train your Pokemon, or my personal favorite is you can build a really cool structure that you can have as something that's permanently in your world. I highly recommend doing one of my Pokemon Center builds. They're really fun, they make your world look way more interactive, and they give you these cool little satellite bases that you can use. The build is super simple and looks really good, and I'll put a link to that in the description. Now, one thing I like about the Aldemon's pack is that in this pack, Giratina spawns in the end rather than the nether, which I don't know about you, but I much prefer hunting for Pokemon in the end than in the nether. The nether's just a lot more dangerous if you're playing in survival. So you'll have to beat the Ender Dragon first, but then you can hunt for Giratina in the end. Wow, and while we were hunting for that, this guy just spawned in, so if you want one of these, they spawn in Badland biomes. But going back to the main point of the video, I want to talk a little bit about best strategies for catching these legendary Pokemon. Because it takes so long for them to spawn, it would be absolutely tragic if you didn't catch them. One of the tricky things about the Aldemon's mod is these big legendaries do not get stuck in boats, which really stinks because that's the best strategy to make sure you never fail a legendary Pokemon. So I have a couple tips I want to share to help you guys know how to catch one easier. First, I recommend you always bring quick balls and timer balls. Obviously, if you have the resources for a master ball, you can just bring that and catch them, but most of us probably don't. So bring quick balls and timer balls are going to be your best friends, and immediately start the battle with a quick ball. If you're lucky, you can just catch the legendary right off the bat. I've had a little bit of luck with this. I did catch a Rayquaza on the first turn of battle once, which was awesome. But sometimes, like you saw here, it doesn't work to catch him on the first turn of battle. So I recommend always having a Pokemon with False Swipe in your team and leveling them up to level 100. My favorite personally is Gallade. He learns False Swipe, but then he also learns Hypnosis, which is a great move that you can put people to sleep. Sometimes I prefer to use something like Paralysis because it sticks around for longer. And so you can get a Pokemon with that in your team as well. Now, the other nice thing about Gallade, he's got a very high attack stat, and his ability allows him his cutting moves like False Swipe to do more damage. Now, when you go against Dialga being a steel type, it's not the best, but he can whittle him down pretty easily. But you want to make sure you have False Swipe. You do not want to be knocking this Pokemon out. If you do, you're going to be really sad, and it's going to take forever for another one to spawn in. So you want to get him down to as low health as possible. Ideally level 1, which you can do with False Swipe. 6% here is probably fine too, but ideally level 1. And then what you really need is a big tanky Pokemon that can inflict a status condition. A lot of times I actually really like to use Snorlax, I think is a really fun one. Or if you carry max revives with you, you can always just revive Gallade and then throw him back out and use Hypnosis. But the goal here really is just to get Dialga or whatever Pokemon you're hunting for down to 1% and then inflict a status condition, and do this all by the time you get to turn number 10. Now you can start throwing Ultra Balls or something before turn number 10 if you want, but turn number 10 is when Timer Balls become most effective. So right here we got him at 1%, we've got him asleep, and then here you want to throw a Timer Ball. At this point, a Timer Ball is twice as effective as an Ultra Ball once you get to turn level 10, so it's going to be your best shot for catching Pokemon. And now it'll still take a little while because legendary Pokemon are hard to catch. But if you come with enough timer balls and a strong enough team to where you're not going to get knocked out, you will end up catching this legendary eventually. Now the moment you've all been waiting for is how do we change these Pokemon to their origin forms? So if you right click Giratina with a Dawnstone, don't give one to hold but right click it, then it will have the option to evolve into the origin form of Giratina. Now I personally am not a huge fan of the origin forms of Palkia and Dialga. They're alright, but I like their normal forms better. But I do think Giratina's origin form is much better than its normal form, and so you'll definitely want to get this guy. But if you are a fan of Dialga and Palkia's origin form, for Dialga you also just right click it with a Dawnstone, and then it has the option to evolve. I had previously right clicked it so it was already able to evolve, but as you can see here it's going to start evolving into Dialga origin form, and I think this one does look pretty sweet. It does look super tall, which is fun to have in your world. Now something important to note is this action is not reversible, so be really careful. Only do this if you always want it as an origin form, because otherwise you're not going to be able to put it back. And the same goes true for Palkia. You just right click it with a Dawnstone and then you can evolve it into origin form Palkia. I think this is really convenient that it's the same item for all three of them. It's pretty easy to remember. If you want to go to their origin form, just use a Dawnstone and then all of them will evolve into their origin forms. And this one actually does look pretty sweet. I think Dialga is probably my least favorite origin form, but Palkia's is still pretty sweet. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video right here where I teach you how to catch Lugia and Ho-Oh in Cobblemon.